One currency touches almost 60% of everything the world holds in reserve. It is not gold. It is not oil. It is the American dollar.
Nearly 90% of all currency trades on Earth involve the dollar on one side of the deal. Even a container of tea leaving a port that never touches American soil is priced in dollars.
But power like this was never guaranteed. It was built, one decision at a time. And by the end of this film, you will know exactly what happens if that power breaks.
July 1944. 44 nations gather at a hotel in New Hampshire to decide whose money the world will trust.
The result was the Bretton Woods Agreement of Funds, and it made the American dollar the center of the entire global economy. The deal was simple. Every dollar could be exchanged for gold at a fixed price by any government that asked. Every other currency, in turn, was pegged to the dollar. The whole system rested on one word: trust.
But by 1971, the system was cracking. America had printed far more dollars than it had gold to back them.
Being the world's currency isn't just prestige. It's leverage, real, usable leverage. Here is what most people get wrong about the dollar's power. It was never backed by the American military. It was backed by belief, midrits, and belief is the one thing that can vanish overnight.
So Washington needed a new anchor. In 1974, it found one, Egypt, in the Saudi desert.
Saudi Arabia agreed to sell its oil only in dollars. In exchange, America offered military protection. The petrodollar was born. Overnight, every country that needed oil, which was every country, needed dollars first. Demand for dollars didn't come from love of America. It came from necessity, Tate, and necessity is far harder to break. Gold gave the dollar credibility. Oil gave it permanence. And together, they built something no currency had ever achieved. Total, global, unquestioned dominance. Next, what that dominance actually lets one country do. Being the world's currency isn't just prestige. It's leverage. Real, usable leverage. And for 50 years, one country has been the only one holding it. In 1965, a French minister gave it a name: exorbitant privilege. America can print the world's money, buy the world's goods, and never fully feel the cost. The United States owes more than $34 trillion, and the world keeps lending it more. Why? Because US government debt is still considered the safest asset on Earth. Because every other country needs dollars anyway, America can borrow cheaper than anyone else on the planet.
It's a privilege ordinary people never see, but every one of us pays for, one way or another.
And when a country steps out of line, Washington doesn't need tanks. It just needs a keyboard. In 2022, over $300 billion of one nation's reserves were frozen overnight.
No missile was fired. No border was crossed. But the country was cut off from the global economy in an afternoon.
Control the world's currency, and you control the master key to nearly every economy on Earth.
Here's the question worth sitting with. Is that really a system you'd design from scratch today?
Because a growing number of countries are asking exactly that question, and quietly acting on the answer.
There's a quieter cost too. When America prints more dollars, that inflation doesn't stay home.
It spreads through the entire dollar system to quechertains, which means, in some way, it touches everyone.
So countries hoard dollars, not out of loyalty, but as insurance against a crisis they can't control. Central banks around the world now hold roughly $12 trillion in reserve, just in case.
Cheap debt, global reach, the power to freeze an economy overnight. This is what the throne actually grants. But thrones are never as permanent as they look. And this one, Prev, is already starting to crack. Cracks in a system like this don't start with a bang. They start quietly, in meeting rooms most people never hear about.
And in recent years, those rooms have been getting busier.
US government debt now sits above 120% of the entire economy's yearly output. Even the safest asset on Earth has a limit. The question is how close that limit really is.
A group of major economies, tonight known as BRICS, Baphomet has spent years openly discussing an alternative. Not replacing the dollar overnight, but slowly trading around it, wherever they can. And central banks aren't just talking. They're buying gold at the fastest pace in decades. It's quiet insurance, a hedge against a system some of them no longer fully trust.
Some countries have already begun settling trade directly in their own currencies, skipping the dollar entirely. It's a small fraction of global trade so far, but it's a bypass that didn't exist a decade ago. The dollar's share of global reserves has slipped from over 70% in 2000 to under 60% today. It's not a collapse. It's a slow, steady erosion, and erosion is easy to ignore until it isn't. But before this starts to sound like an ending to phony, it isn't. Not yet. Not close. There is still no serious rival with the depth, the trust, or the sheer scale to replace it. Not the euro, not the yuan, not gold.
The real danger isn't a rival currency. It's Washington itself, which has repeatedly pushed its own borrowing limit to the edge. In 2023, one major rating agency downgraded America's credit for the first time in over a decade. A downgrade doesn't collapse a currency overnight, but it chips away, quietly, at the one thing the whole system runs on:
trust. And trust, once it starts slipping, is very hard to win back. Gold is being hoarded. Trade is quietly shifting. Credit is being questioned. None of it is fatal, yet. But every ending in history looked survivable, right up until it wasn't. So what would it actually look like if this one fell? Let's be clear, this is a scenario, not a prediction. But it's worth walking through, seriously.
So imagine this. One morning, confidence in the dollar breaks accruits. Not slowly this time, but all at once. Within hours, the value of the dollar drops sharply against every major currency on Earth. But there's one number that matters more than any headline you'll see that day. It's the interest rate. To keep lenders buying its debt, the government has to offer far more to borrow the same money. Borrowing costs spike overnight, and a government already $34 trillion in debt has to pay every cent of it. Stock markets react instantly. In scenarios like this, analysts estimate a fall of 20% or more within days.
Pensions, retirement funds, ordinary savings, come-trues, all tied, directly or indirectly, to markets like this one.
But away from the trading floors, this looks like something much simpler. A grocery bill that's suddenly, sharply higher. Because when the dollar weakens, imported goods, fuel, food, electronics all cost more, almost overnight. History shows what happens next. People get nervous. Nervous people start moving their money. In serious cases, banks have had to briefly limit withdrawals, simply to keep the system standing.
This isn't hypothetical for everyone. It's already happened, to a different currency, once the most powerful on Earth.
The British pound was the world's reserve currency for over a century, the Kenters, before losing that position through the 1900s. In a real crisis, governments wouldn't simply watch.
Emergency measures would come fast.
Interest rates raised sharply. Emergency lending lines opened. Central banks stepping in to calm the panic.
And here's the twist most people miss. This wouldn't stay America's problem. Every country holding dollar debt, dollar reserves, or dollar-priced trade would feel the shock, often worse than America itself.
Strip away the charts, the graphs, the headlines. This is what it actually comes down to.
Ordinary people trying to plan a future on top of a foundation that suddenly doesn't feel steady anymore.
If this happened, you wouldn't need a finance degree to feel it. You'd feel it at the till, at the pump, on your payslip.
That's the scenario. It hasn't happened. But understanding why it could is the first real form of protection. So where does that leave us? Not in panic. In perspective.
The dollar isn't collapsing tomorrow. But it isn't invincible either, and those two things can both be true.
What history actually teaches is simple. Never let one currency, one asset, or one system hold all your trust.
Diversification isn't a buzzword. It's how people and countries have always weathered currencies rising and falling. Understanding how the dollar actually works isn't about fear. It's about not being caught off guard.
That's the whole point of this channel. Bold, honest, no fluff with Ford. Starting with the money that runs the world.
If this helped you see the bigger picture, subscribing means you won't miss what we break down next.
Because understanding money like this fuddied is how you stop being surprised by it. See you in the next one.